the extradition request for the Gupta brothers that has been denied by a UAE court. Justice Minister Ronald Lamola says he was caught off guard and is shocked by the decision. SA authorities were not aware of the court matter. Government says it will now be engaging its counterparts in the UAE to ensure this dismissal is appealed. For more on that, let's head over to senior reporter Slindelo Masikane. Sli, hello to you. So briefing today, it sounds like most people who were meant to know what was going on were actually quite surprised by the outcome.
Certainly so, shocked to be exact. That was the word that was used by the Justice Minister, who said essentially South Africans have been denied justice by this particular decision, which they were unaware of. An entire court hearing took place around the 13th of February 2023, where the extradition application by South Africa was heard and concluded without a representative of the country even being there. So they're saying that they're going to take this up with authorities in the UAE. And of course, we know that this process, Gareth, began last year around February, when Interpol issued red notices for the Gupta brothers. They were then arrested in Dubai around June, and South Africa then making an extradition request in July. 9 months later, we now know that the decision was to dismiss the application and deny the request, but authorities are planning on appealing this decision. Let's take a listen.
From our side, and the central authority, the department and everything, we have complied with every letter of the extradition treaty that we have between ourselves and the UAE authorities. And to ensure this compliance, as the NDPP and the DG have said, we have even sent the central authority and allowed also the NPA to go to the UAE to have engagements with their counterparts. Before the papers were submitted, they said the central authority in the UAE and the prosecution in the UAE confirmed that all our papers are in order. So from our side, we have complied, and that's why we are bemused by this judgment that cites technicalities. And we find it shocking that such a technicality has been cited when all these efforts have been put by us. And that's why I went through the timelines of what we did and what happened between our central authority and the central authorities of the UAE. But as I read Article 17 of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, even if that was the case, the authority, even if they had technicality problems, the authorities in the UAE, in terms of this Article 17, should have still required clarity from our authorities that there is this issue, for example, of the warrant that was cancelled, which could have been easily explained by the NDPP as she's explaining now to them, because the correct warrant is still there. They could have been able to get clarity. So Article 17 of the United Nations Convention, maybe I should read it again. It says that before refusing extradition, the requested state party shall, where appropriate, consult with the requesting state party to provide it with ample opportunity to present its opinions and to provide information relevant to its allegation. So there is no basis whatsoever for this technical judgment that we have been given. So from our side, we are still very clear that we complied with the treaty and its obligations.
All right, so what exactly has the NDPP actually had to say about this, and how are they going to proceed going forward, Sli?
Well, the NDPP was there just to assure South Africans, I think, in essence, that authorities, especially the NPA in particular, is undeterred. They're going to work closely with the Justice and Correctional Services Department to ensure that the appeal is successful. They were told that the denial of the extradition request was based on a technicality, so they're looking into exactly what their technicality is, but also stressing that, the treaty between the UAE as well as South Africa does state that with such requests, if there are issues around technicalities, then that should the country requesting should be given an opportunity to rectify the technicalities within the application before it goes ahead to a court hearing. So I think there's going to be just more work done in order to ensure that the appeal is successful, that it's heard, and of course the NPA saying that they want to bring back anyone who was implicated in state capture to come back and face the full might of the law here in South Africa. Let's take a listen.
I would have thought that the statement, as well as what those of us on this panel have mentioned today, would have been absolutely clear about the fact that South Africa ticked all the boxes and did everything that was required to ensure that our extradition had the best possible opportunities for successful application. There was nothing more that the South African authorities could have done. That's the first thing. And I think it's very important for colleagues to understand these processes and the way they work. The second issue on this is that, what are the chances of the Guptas ever being brought? It's a question of, how long is a piece of string, really? We don't know. It depends on a whole lot. Extradition is a complicated process. And when there are persons that are trying to make sure that they do not ever face justice, rest assured, corruption fights back. And they're going to fight back with every possible means and opportunities to ensure that they are never brought back to stand trial in South Africa, because they understand what the consequences will be. So all I can say is that, depending on the countries that you're dealing with, some processes are, as the DG explains, could be less complicated than others. So at the end of the day, we have to ensure that as a country, irrespective of where they are, we do everything possible to ensure that they are brought back to face justice in South Africa. It is what the people of this country expect and want. It is what we, as those in the criminal justice system, want and expect. So we will leave no stone unturned.
All right, so while we're talking about all things investigations-wise, I suppose we also have to find out, Slee, any updates as far as Thabo Bester is concerned?
Not at this point, Gareth. I think for the past 2 weeks now, we've seen law enforcement officials, the Department of Justice, really closing rank in regards to giving us any information with regards to how the manhunt is going, in terms of whether they know where Bester is, where his accomplices are, his allies like Dr. Nandipa, the latest being, of course, being a car that was left at the Beitbridge border on the Zimbabwean side. That was actually leased out to Dr. Nandi about 7 days after the escape in May 2022. We are expecting a parliamentary sitting of the Justice and Correctional Services Portfolio Committee next week. We know G4S has been summoned to appear before that committee as well. And essentially today, the Minister just reiterating the fact that South Africans will be kept abreast during that sitting and given answers in terms of investigations.
Looking for at the moment is just details and the latest on the investigation. Seems to be moving rather slowly, but that's the latest as far as government is concerned. Slindelo Masikane, thank you very much indeed, the eNCA Senior Report.